Hey, I'm Lee Shuba, and I'm going to be working with you all today on early colonial flower arrangements. Our schedule this year is based on American female poets. It's a great schedule, and we're going to be looking at them chronologically, which is why we're starting with early American. We have met many times at this dining room table in the past doing collaborative arranging workshops, which is a great way to learn, and it's a fun way to teach, but it's not going to happen right now. So we're going to be doing it virtually, which has the advantage of cutting the time short. Nobody is talking except me, so it's a much faster process, and it's one you can revisit anytime you want to on tape. I would like to talk a little bit more about our schedule. Our club works on doing artistic flower arranging as opposed to commercial arranging. Commercial arrangers have to deal with matching up with people's wallpaper or bridesmaids' dresses or other constraints like this. But when you do artistic arranging, all you're really trying to do is react to a theme, both emotionally and or intellectually. Last year we did that by working with paintings, and I hope you all got enough practice and information doing that last year that you'll see that it's a very easy transition to interpret poetry. Our poets that we're working with this year are all American women, and we're looking at them chronologically, which is interesting. And I wanted you to know that we're going to be starting with a poet named Anne Bradstreet. She was a young woman when she came to this country with the Puritans who were escaping religious persecution. She was just married and came with her parents and new husband, and they settled in Massachusetts. She was busy in the community and eventually had 8 children, but before her last 2 children were even born, she had published her first book of poetry. She was the first published poet, either male or female, in America, so that's pretty impressive. Her themes were mostly religious, which sounds daunting because who wants to interpret a religious theme? She made this easier for us, though, because she equated a lot of the things in her world, people, children, and nature, in particular, the flowers around her and trees, and it felt like they were a reflection of the heaven that was to come. So our written schedule every month is going to have one verse of a representative poem. If you want to, you can go online and read the whole poem if you want more context. This poem is named Contemplations, and the verse that I chose is: "The trees, all richly clad, yet void of pride, were gilded o'er by his rich golden head. Their leaves and fruit seemed painted, but was true of green, of red, of yellow, mixed hues. Rapt were my senses at this delectable view." This is pretty straightforward to me in terms of what I react to. She mentions leaves and fruits, and she mentions a color palette, the green, red, yellow, mixed hue. So that's where I'm going to start off interpreting the poem, and I think it's going to be pretty straightforward. The early colonial arrangements were informal because they reflected a lifestyle that really had few luxuries. People had fewer household items, and they also like to feature fruits, pods, grasses, both cultivated and wild. They like to combine fresh elements with dried, and they arrange them in simple, natural ways that is often referred to as pick and poke. They would go into a garden, pick the flowers they had, and just place them right into a household object that served as a vase in their home. So first we're going to look at possible vases that might work for an early colonial I always tell people that the best arrangers are the ones that never throw anything out, and I stand by that. I found this down in my basement. I don't know that it's really early colonial, but it ticks a lot of boxes. It's rustic. It has her color palette. I like the size. It's a ordinary household utility kind of utilitarian object, and I think it's going to be sweet. People think that if they do a small arrangement, there's something that's less wonderful about that, because we're used to going to big flower shows where it appears that everything that looks great is huge, but small arrangements are perfectly acceptable, and they often appear as real gems. So this is what I'm probably going to work with today. Another one I might play around with a bit is this. This is a Colonial tea kettle that belonged to my parents. It's copper. People often tell you that you should never use anything reflective when you're doing flower arrangements. They detract from the floral arrangement itself, and they mirror the surroundings. I think that's more true of silver than copper. I think copper is more of a color than silver, and it looks really good with oranges, yellows. It contrasts with blues and purples. So I think this is a good size, and it's something I would definitely consider using for arranging. This is a pewter object. Again, this is a real colonial arrangement. It belonged to my mother-in-law, who I never even met, but I saved it. I find this a little awkward, though I guess you could position this container in an attractive way that would work well with flowers. It certainly fits the bill for what a colonial person might use. And here is another piece. This is Delft. It's not real Delft. Many colonial families had Delftware with them. This looks too shiny and modern to me, but it is an option. And if I had the right kind of flowers, it's something I might be considering. It also has a really big exterior opening, which doesn't make me very happy. And one more thing to show you. I have this. Let's see how it looks. Sitting out in my family room. This certainly looks like an earthenware jar from colonial times. And this is truly pick and poke. Over the years, or seasons at any rate, I have picked things and just put them in here to dry. So this is a completely dried arrangement, and it has that informal colonial look to it. So I thought I'd just show that to you. Flowers. The other thing good arrangers need to do is have a good garden, or at least a friend who has a very good garden. And the flowers that we're going to be looking at for early colonial arrangements are in the garden right now, so it's perfect. I went to Trader Joe's thinking I might need to pick up some things, but I spent $4.99 on flowers there. They just didn't look as good as some of the stuff in my garden, even though it was not all in great condition. That's not really a prerequisite for what we're doing today. Dried grasses, flowers that are kind of dried are all going to be acceptable in an arrangement. So there is a huge list online on the garden, gcvirginia.org. If you go to what we do and click on horticulture and floral design, you will find a section there on traditional arrangements. The American early colonial arrangements are at the very end of that list, and they list all the possible flowers or containers that are acceptable. Almost any native flower you have in your garden is going to work. All right, let's get started. I'm going to start with this because I really do like it a lot, and I think it'll work well. I have flowers surrounding me here. Oops. And I am grabbing up this collection. And I'll show you some of what's in this. This is Baptisia, which is a native. Kind of looks like rue to me, which is, you know, an herb that they would be using. This is there's an honest plant in here with dried food pods. That's a food seed pods, which is a good one. This is garlic, which is a pretty soft color like the container. I have Rudbeckia. I have feverfew. I have mountain mint. This is mountain mint I learned about in garden club. We were told that it was the plant that attracted more pollinators than any other plant you could put out there. And it does do that. There are hundreds of bees on this plant in my yard. It's a little invasive, but as long as you put it someplace where that's not a problem, I recommend it. I put some sedum in. This is dried lavender. This is dried beautyberry. This is black and blue salvia, which is one of my favorites. They never show up very well because blue recedes, but I wanted something that color in this arrangement so it would go with the container. I've got some grasses from the garden up here. I'm going to give this a cut and see if I can, this doesn't want to cut. See if I can just poke it in here. You don't want to completely throw away principles of design. You do want it to have a balanced look. So I'm going to do some straightening out here. I have this really cute little carpet rose here that's not showing very well. It's a good color. It's this pretty peachy color that looks good with the design on the container. Anyhow, this is a complete arrangement. Not overthought and still looking attractive. And hopefully just what they would have done then. The next one I'm going to work on is, I'm going to use my copper kettle here. And I'm going to use a different color palette. So, as I said, I want to do things, I want to put colors in here that are going to bring out the copper, like this. So, let me see what else I have right here. I'm not quite just picking them out of the garden, but I am just picking them out of my pail here. And I'm doing this a little bit like I would do a hand-tied arrangement. I'm kind of doing a spiral with them. I don't know whether I'm going to really be able to use this or not, so I'm going to put it aside right now. Rudbeckia is a great one. These are rose hips. It's a very colonial thing to put in, even though they're probably going to get a little lost in this, but daisies were a big arranging flower in colonial times. Couldn't quite find daisies, but I certainly found something daisy-like. It's a little strong. I'm going to get rid of some of it. White flowers, unless you have a white in your container, can sometimes be a little too strong. Um, put this somewhere else. Okay. These are kind of a mess. Anyhow, I want to get my grasses in before I get too far along. I want to get this is a seed pod for bee balm. I'm losing I'm going to put these rose hips in later so they stand a chance of still showing. Okay. Garlic can go kind of high. They're a smaller flower. They're purple. They're kind of contrasting with the orange that we're working with here, and yellow. Let's get some more yellow in. You know what? I'm going to cut this grass down. I'm going to go to working right in here. I'll do the poke right now, but I think I can control better what I'm doing if I actually put it in the container so I can see where we're going. It's kind of nice recording this because I can look up and it's like a mirror. Ugh. This is kind of a mess. Okay. Yeah, I'm going to put this in now. Some contrasting purple. I don't want these right on top of each other, so let's see. I'll put some sedum in here to break this up, get some height. And then, let's see. Start working in some more purple on this side. Some more garlic. Get some more mountain mint to put back here. You always have to fill in well in the back, otherwise you don't get any depth in your arrangement. And this certainly needs that. So, let's see. Get some purple. Some more red. This little bee balm is about done out in the garden, but I wanted to put some in. This is not looking colonial enough without grasses, so I'm going to start adding them. Ugh. I don't want them in my centerpiece exactly. I'm thinking more in terms of something like this to have in the center. Something lighter. I'm thinking I want something a little brighter right here. So I'll put that in for a pop of color. And I have all the white on one side, so I might stick another daisy-like thing on that side. And I'm looking for a tube vine. Not sure where I put it. Here's a little Veronica. I'll stick that in here with my pinks. And here's my rose hips, which look good up there. I'm not sure what I've done with my tube vine. Here it is. I just want to balance the orange over on this corner without using a big rose again. I'm gonna get the color. And I think that's where we want to be with this. The last thing I'm going to show you very quickly is how you can adapt an arrangement for one size container for a container that's much bigger, but you can still use the same basic flowers as long as you have enough water in the deep container. I like this container because it just looks like a great Colonial earthenware jug. One thing we could add to this is some fruit. These are champagne grapes, which I think are a great color. And they're smaller, so they're not overpowering. I guess you can see them. To add that Colonial look. And I have some chives. And I have this really cool grass that I'm growing outside this year. Because this could take a little more height, I think. So I'll just stick these in randomly, and I'm thinking of putting, I might be able to squeeze in, maybe in back here, I can squeeze in this really big phlox. It smells great, and it is a great color. There. Okay. I think this finishes it off. If you all have any questions about what you saw here, please email me or give me a call, and I look forward to seeing you all again someday soon, I hope. Thanks.